You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to another Friday edition of Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com, and you can also find me at 5cardguys on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and on TikTok. Alright, it's a quick solo intro from me today because the rest of the hour and a half, I think this is a long one, I'm going to play an episode I just recorded recently with my hobby friend Paul Hickey of the Sports Card Strategy Show. We used to record together once every couple of weeks, but the last several months, we've both been pretty busy putting out our own content, but it was good to reconnect with Paul and catch up on a number of hobby topics, including setting up at a card show, like I recently did at the Sport Card Expo. We also talked about the pros and cons of vending versus walking around at a card show. We also touched on what kind of collectors we are, according to a pretty fun tool that Jeremy Lee, who is a mutual friend of the podcast, something he created. I can add the link below in the show notes for you to check out for yourself. But when I recorded with Paul, I was in the middle of completing that questionnaire. It's 50 questions, so it's quite comprehensive. And I predicted in the episode you're about to hear that I was a certain type of collector. And I'll just tease it now. I was right. So just remember that part when we talk about it on this episode. Anyway, we also got into sports card strategies, like how we collect, how we invest. We also talked about what I'm doing with my Mike Trout rookie autograph card. We talked Pokemon cards and a lot of other things. So hope you enjoy our talk today. And just a heads up, he did record some ad reads for his pod since it's going on both our pods. And I kept some of them in this show. So if you're interested in what he's got going on, go check out his website at nooffseason.com. And oh yeah, at the very end, he mentions being really impressed with me having a media pass for Fanatics Fest last year and still being able to get a box of Cactus Jack baseball, which was really hard to get because you had to go into the EQL line. And I had to think about it afterwards, how I actually did that. Because with a media pass, you don't get a number to enter. And then I remembered that I actually bought a separate ticket to Fanatics Fest, although I already had a media pass, just so I can enter the EQL line for the Cactus Jack boxes, which I happened to win that year. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up. All right, enjoy the show, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
Welcome in, nooffseason.com family. We're always so happy to have you with us here to help you make money flipping sports cards using data-driven sports card investing. On today's show, we have a special guest co-host, Clark Kim. He's become a good friend of mine. Clark is a co-founder of a successful hobby website called 5Card Guys, 5cardguys.com, and they also have 5Card Guys on Instagram, so check him out. And he is the co-host of a very popular podcast called Cards to the Moon. So on today's show, we're going to discuss some card show strategy. We'll discuss, is setting up as a vendor at a card show really worth it, or is it better to walk the show? And we're going to talk about Mike Trout and some sports card strategy surrounding Mike Trout. Sell now, buy more, hold, why? And listen, many of you have listened to the Sports Card Strategy Show for a long time now and have thought about subscribing to nooffseason.com as a premium member, but for some reason, you've been waiting. Something's been holding you back. Well, I'm here to tell you that your wait is over. Don't let someone else grab your spot. nooffseason.com helps you make real profits flipping sports cards with insider data, proven strategies, and exclusive access to undervalued cards before the rest of the market catches on. Check out nooffseason.com now to see if there are any spots available. We actually limit our premium membership spots. If there's not any spots available, don't worry. Just join the wait list to get in on the next drop, and we're going to get you in. All right. Also, Sports Card Strategy Show is powered and sponsored by Slab Dynasty Cards, a next-gen sports card platform built for collectors that includes a 2% marketplace fee and a choose your chase feature as well. Start your dynasty today using code NOOFFSEASON for 20% off your first Slab Dynasty purchase. All right, let's welcome in my main man, Clark Kim, to the Sports Card Strategy Show. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. Great to be back. It's been a little while. I know we've both been busy. So yeah, great to connect in this way.
Absolutely. It's great to have you back, this time as a guest co-host on the Sports Card Strategy Show. And I know this is going to air on Cards to the Moon too. So shout out to Cards to the Moon listeners. We love all of you. Clark and I, like he's alluding to, we were in like a nice little cadence of creating content together, and we want to try to get back into that. So, Clark, all right. So for those of you that don't know you very well, I think there's actually a good way to introduce people to their collector identity or their hobby identity, how they identify. And our friend Jeremy Lee of Sports Cards Live built something called the hobbyspectrum.com. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, you should go check it out. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's basically he calls it a comprehensive assessment, right? So you go to the hobbyspectrum.com, you take a comprehensive assessment, and then it identifies you as one of 7 collector archetypes, which is really cool. And there's a directory, so you can connect with other people in the hobby there. So we've talked about it on the Sports Card Strategy Show before. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but Clark, I want to ask you, like, what do you think your collector identity is if you haven't taken the assessment yet?
Like I was saying off air, I was like right in the middle of it. So I think I'm on question 28 out of 50. So it's pretty comprehensive, but I'm like almost 2/3 of the way there. But just looking at the categories, I'm going to predict, and I'll let you know afterwards. I'll text you, but I'm going to predict that I'm probably hybrid, which is kind of a mix. It says here, driven by emotion and strategy, collects with balanced awareness of personal and market factors. That kind of sounds like me to a T, actually. So I'm going to guess hybrid, kind of the middle of the spectrum, so to speak, is where I land. We'll see.
I like that. I didn't have a prediction for you before you said that, but like knowing what I know about you through creating content together, I feel like that is that's spot on, because it says like emotion and strategy. And I've heard you talk about just liking something, just really, really liking something and wanting to acquire it. Yes. But then I also know that you're not just out there buying crap because you like it. There's like a strategy behind it. So I like the hybrid. That's cool. All right. So I took the assessment several months ago, and my collector archetype is, what do you think it is?
I'm going to go with tycoon.
Ooh, nice. I like that prediction. See, I thought I was going to be a tycoon, but I'm actually an operator.
That was my second guess. I thought you would be on that end of the spectrum, but yeah, makes sense to me too.
For sure. So operator says strategic and analytical. Definitely. That's like, I think if you ask anybody that knows me, like in my personal life or through the hobby, they would probably say that. They would probably also say I'm profit focused for sure, which is tycoon. But strategic and analytical, driven by market insight and conviction, invest with discipline and purpose. Yeah, definitely. Like, I think maybe, see, you haven't gotten through the whole assessment yet. I'm interested in your take. There's a couple questions in there that sort of lend themselves to being a little bit more risky to try to get more profit. And I think that's why I'm not a tycoon. I think that I answered, I think there's like 2 or 3 specific questions in there where my answer was more towards the middle of the spectrum, actually, which I think is why I'm an operator, even though like 90% of the questions, I'm just like, yeah, profit, Right. So, like unemotional. All right, cool. So shout out to Jeremy Lee, Sports Cards Live. Check out the Hobby Spectrum. Okay, Clark, one thing I ask everyone that's like a little bit different than the Hobby Spectrum is like, what is their hobby why? Like, why are they in the hobby? I can't remember if I've ever asked you this, but what is your hobby why?
Yeah, I guess it's changed over the years, but when I first got into it, it's pure nostalgia play, right? Like a lot of us, many of us, even the guests I interview on our podcast, it's similar stories. Oh, we collected as a kid, And, now we have disposable income that now that we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. And, we like to buy nice cards that we couldn't afford as kids. So that's how it started. But now that I do this on a full-time basis, I guess that's evolved, right? That question of hobby why is that I get to do something I really enjoy doing, providing hobby content, staying up with the hobby news, as well as funding my collection that, that's kind of what we were alluding to earlier about me taking a more hybrid approach. So it's kind of this mix of, I see myself as a collector and investor type equally, almost like a 50-50 in a way. So, I mean, that lends itself to a larger debate or discussion about, who's the hobby for. It's like the collectors are furious at investors don't get collectors. I'm like right in the middle. I'm in the boat where we could all coexist, guys, so that's kind of to answer the whole hobby why is I draw from both sides, so that's kind of, I guess, how I see myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great hobby why. And I feel like you're in it to make sure everybody's having fun. Like you're like the guy that is wanting to just kind of make sure that whether it's at a card show or whether it's like just talking about making plays or anything in between, that everyone is like positive and having fun. And I think that's a great thing. So actually, before I ask you what your sports card strategy is, because that's a little bit different type of question, I want to ask a couple follow-up questions about your hobby why.
Sure.
So you kind of alluded to this collectors versus investors thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got into that with a couple content creators in a very friendly way. Like it wasn't like it wasn't like actual bad blood or anything like that. But there were some content creators a few years ago that were sort of challenging me about what I do. And because again, I'm that tycoon / operator.
Right.
And talk about, just come out and say, like, we're here to help you make money flipping sports cards. So there were people that kind of rubbed the wrong way and they kind of challenged me. And all the while I'm kind of thinking, man, it's like easy to do what you do. Like you're just buying cards. Like you guys are just like,
Sure.
you're just like, oh, I like that card, I'm going to buy it. And I understand the nostalgia piece that you mentioned earlier. Cause like, that's kind of where it started, but then it evolved for you. And that's, for me, it started as, oh yeah, nostalgia is cool and everything. I like looking at this David Robinson 1989 hoops at the press conference where, for the Spurs. I remember that card as a kid, and that was the card that like really got me into the hobby. But I don't really care because I can go buy as many of those as I want, and then they're just sitting there. So what's the fun in that? So we got into this like debate about collecting versus investing. What is your experience with that? Like, have you had any situations where it's gotten like super heated, maybe even over social media or just things that you've observed? Like what's your take overall on that? Cause I kind of try to avoid it, to be honest. Like I kind of try to just let everybody do their thing. And if someone's challenging me, I mean, I have my response. I have my hobby why. I think the only time I actually ever get challenged anymore is when I go on Jeremy Lee's show and there's people in the comments on the live chat.
Right.
They're like hating and I have to like address it. But what's your take?
No, that's a good question. And it's insightful because I definitely, anyone that follows me at 5 Card Guys on Instagram, occasionally I'll put a card up there and then kind of show you the market data, like what the price was in 5 years ago. And then 4 years ago, 3 years ago to where we are now. And then I'll occasionally get comments too. It's like, why are you even posting this? Like, why are you putting dollars on, like, is it because you want to make a profit? I'm like, well, yeah, sometimes I do want to make a profit off some of these cards and I want to see what the trends are. So there are always those types where, like I was saying, like they're just pure collectors. And honestly, I don't have an issue being people being pure collectors and they just buy the card they love. And, but like I said, there's room for different kind of collectors. And sometimes, and not all pure collectors are snarky like that, but there are a few that feel like that's there should only be pure collector types. And then, if you extrapolate that, then the hobby just, I don't believe, would exist at all. I just feel like it would just be, in a way, very exclusive. And I think no one wants to enjoy a hobby where there are only one types of collectors. So that's kind of where I stand, and on the other side of things, sure, I get people being, rubbed the wrong way a little bit, like you were saying, that to see money as the pure play and that's their main motive. And but I don't knock people for that either. Like, that's, for me, again, that's how they would like to collect. And I think they're a valuable part of the ecosystem, the hobby ecosystem. The money needs to come in and flow. And I think, like any industry, you need those collectors as, or quote, collectors or investor types in the hobby as well to make it all work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to me, it boils down to, we're all sort of collectors and investors. And the reason I say that is because the people who identify on the hobby spectrum as purists or nostalgic or precisionists, like when they come out on that end of the spectrum, the reality is they're better flippers than a lot of the people that are operators and tycoons. They're more educated and they've been in the hobby longer to understand what is desirable and what is going to go up in value.
Right.
The only difference is that they don't sell as much. They just acquire more and keep their stuff longer. But they do sell stuff that they realize they don't want anymore so that they can buy other stuff. I think that, like, I've gotten to the point over the last, like, almost 7 years now where I've gotten very good at doing that. The only difference is I just sell everything, I just enjoy the same aspects of the hobby that the people on the other end of the spectrum enjoy. I just sell everything. And I use my experience from selling everything and in transacting all the time to create content and build a business around that. And so I think we're all doing the same thing, actually. And I think that the hobby, the sports card hobby, the collectibles, I'll throw collectibles out there, even though I think sports cards is like super niche within collectibles.
Sure.
I think that when you're in collectibles, you are an entrepreneur. You're looking at, and this could be anything. This could be, people that are doing something completely outside of sports, right? Like antiquing or whatever. Like there's an entrepreneurship aspect of what we do. And so you can't be somebody on the other end of the spectrum and just be like, oh, you guys just want to make money on this? Like, to your point, yeah, I do. What do you just want to acquire stuff that's going to go down in value? That's not what you're doing. You're, like, let's be real with each other. So it's like, I think, and then the other thing too that I learned is that somebody told me this, Mike LaCusta, who I haven't talked to in a while, but he was creating some content for a while. He kind of told me that he had a bad taste in his mouth about the word flipper. And I said, well, why? Because to me, I use the word flipping to describe buying singles on eBay and then either grading them or selling them in the same condition, just at a different marker in the future where I think that's going to go up in value. We call them selling markers, right? So I'm like, why is that bad? And he's like, well, no, that's not what I'm talking about when I hear flipper. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm talking about the people that rush the shelves at retail when there's a new release, and push over little kids and buy everything and then go sell them for 4 times the amount on the secondary market. Then that made me wonder, is that why people associate investing and flipping with something negative? I don't know. What's your take on that?
No, that's interesting because I don't know if you know, but the Pokemon card market is just on fire right now. And we'll talk about it later on in the show. When I set up at the sports card show, I sold more Pokemon cards than sports cards. And I did not expect that for me because I still consider myself primarily a sports card collector. But just because the market's been hot, I've been really interested in it. And in that Pokemon TCG card world, they don't call them flippers. They call them scalpers. So it's even a negative,
even worse. Wow.
Right? A more negative connotation of what that is. So to your point, I feel like there is maybe people that think about flippers, think about them more like as scalpers. We're of the age scalpers. Remember, you go to baseball game, they look shady with their tickets and they're calling for like
cardboard sign.
Cardboard sign. Yeah, exactly. Those days. So yeah, we all have this connotation of, let's say it's just negative. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there needs to be more education on that. But in reality, like I know there's a lot of TCG card collectors that really despise quote unquote scalpers, yet a lot of them are at shows with singles and they're flipping for thousands of dollars more than what they got it for. So I mean, are we talking semantics here, or like what's going on, right? If we truly want to assess the situation for what it is.
Yeah, is this a pot calling the kettle black situation? What's going on here? Well, that's good stuff. I mean, I think that those topics are super compelling, and I'm interested to get into the expo, the Toronto expo that you were at not too long ago. But before we get into that, I like to ask people, what is your sports card strategy? And I think what I mean by that is like, as you're in your day to day, and you're obviously like, anyone we talk to on this show is like transacting. You're buying and you're selling. So there's got to be some kind of thought process behind that, right? So how would you describe that? What is your sports card strategy?
Yeah, for me, I just like to simplify things because, there's so many different inventory that's out there that you can collect and buy. And so it could become overwhelming. So for me, what helps in terms of my sports card strategy is to simplify certain pillars that I would generally go by. I could deviate every once in a while, but some of these pillars are nowadays with me trying to make some money back in the middle to long term. I try to find serial numbered cards. So there's a scarcity factor in there. Extra things like color match, that's kind of what I enjoy collecting anyway. So that kind of marries the fact that, enjoy what you collect, but also it's also could be financially rewarding because there's a lot of people that do like color match cards. I could speak on that later on at the sports card show that I was set up at. And rookie cards, like those are kind of my three pillars. Like rookie traditionally held more value. With modern cards these days, numbered cards are important, and then little extras like color match. And then the brand itself, like Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome, like there's so many different variations of products out there. I like to focus on the main kind of top brands that I know have traditionally held value. So that's kind of my strategy in terms of looking for certain cards. And these days I've been adding one more pillar. It's like, I'm really interested in the superfractor area of things because it's kind of crazy. Again, I could expand on it a little bit more at the sports card show, but I have my Bobby Witt Jr. home field advantage superfractor that everyone that listens to my podcast knows I talk about a lot. And I got it for a certain amount, but with the 1 of 1, you could really price it at anything. And all it takes is one person to say yes to that card. And it's really interesting play. I wouldn't put all my money in superfractors. It's a high risk situation there, but having a few where it could be an outlier down the road, that makes things interesting for me too. So yeah, all those 4 or 5 things I just mentioned, I kind of try to, if it kind of matches any of those, most of those categories, I'm really interested in those cards.
There's some amazing stuff in there. So like, I think number one, you talked about you have a simplified, narrowed focus, but it also allows you to do different things within that focus, which is cool. So like, you didn't mention you're only looking for a specific type of player. You mentioned like 3 sort of different avenues of cards, like actual types of cards that you're looking for, and then brands that you're looking for within those cards. So I think a narrow focus is super important. And you use the word like simplification. Do you like to simplify things? And I think that's super smart. So I really like that. And of course, like Topps Chrome and the other brand like Bowman, those are obviously like brands that now span multiple sports, right? Like they're traditionally baseball brands. I know you're a baseball guy. You'll talk more about that, but also you can, there's Bowman basketball now, and there's obviously Topps Chrome for multiple sports. So the other thing too that you mentioned that it's never happened on the Sports Card Strategy show. So this is the first time, which is awesome. Superfractor strategy.
It's out there.
I am now excited about a potential superfractor strategy. I always thought superfractors were out of my reach, but I mean, maybe talk a little bit more about that. Like, there's obviously superfractors that maybe are more attainable that there's a play with. Is that kind of what you're doing?
No, for sure. I mean, it kind of evolved from the thought that in this modern collecting age, the one of one or the superfractors isn't as special as it was before. There's so many different products coming out, and there's like multiple one of ones of players, and especially with baseball and basketball, and football now with under the Top Scrum brand, you'll get superfractors that have a distinct look as well, right? The concentric circles, and so when people see it in person, it is definitely eye-catching. And the fact that everyone knows that the superfractor is a one of one, and if they like the player, and this is I forgot to add another category. It's kind of almost 1A, 1B category is players, like players I believe in, that I want to collect. That's kind of factored into what I like to pick up. But yeah, if it's like someone like Bobby Witt, who I'm a really strong believer in, it's amazing how many Bobby Witt fans come and they're like, oh, that's amazing looking. And they look closer like, oh, wow, this is a one of one. How much is it? And then they have to factor in if that's in their budget as well, and you never know. Like I at the Sport Card Expo, there were quite a few that asked, and maybe a couple that were like humming and hawing. I'm like, this is crazy. If they're willing to pay the amount that I just threw out there, I mean, I've got to be stupid to not accept it, right? But the fact that there is someone that might consider it is crazy to me. So that got my, brain thinking a little bit more about this so-called superfractor strategy. Maybe I should look into others that are, because there are so many more one-of-ones. Yeah, it's not necessarily 5-figure cards. You could buy some that are $1,000 maybe, and then if that player appreciates the way they play or become popular in whatever way, because it's a one of one, you're like, okay, I'm gonna just 5x this. I think it's 5x the value now.
Yeah.
And then the only other comp is looking at the red refractor, but trying to determine the multiplier between a red or orange to the super is a little subjective as well. So that's what makes it interesting for me.
I love it. I think there's a lot to the superfractor strategy that we need to continue to unpack in future content, because there's like, to your point, there's, I mean, if you think about it, there's probably only going to be 0 or 1 comp for it. Like in a lot of them, there's probably no comps. Mm-hmm. And so then people are trying to figure out what it's worth. And so you can throw that out there. There's also, and everything you described is, I would say, the kind of the main selling points. But then I would add, you've got collectors that need the one of one in their mind, because they're trying to complete the entire serial numbered collection of whatever parallel, the rainbow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do people still call it that? Like, is that term the rainbow? Is that like the term that everyone's using still?
I guess so.
You're the hybrid on the show right now. I'm just the operator.
I mean, what makes it more difficult to call it the rainbow is that there's so many different parallels out there, like disco ball, or so it's not even by color anymore. It's by shapes. Yeah. So yeah, to your point, maybe they don't call it the rainbow anymore, but they used to.
I remember not too long ago, people were chasing the rainbow like Skittles.
Right.
So that's a great sports card strategy. Great answer to what is your sports card strategy. Okay. We're about to get into a few different things that we've alluded to. So recently you were at the Toronto Expo, and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, walk us through what your thoughts are after going to that show.
Yeah, so I've been at the Toronto Sport Card Expo for multiple years now, especially since I came back to the hobby. But I've never set up a booth or was a vendor until this past week, really, just for the Spring Expo. So yeah, that was a great experience for me. I learned a lot. So speaking of strategies, I change it up each day in terms of like, how do I display my cards in a way that attracts more people to come to the booth. But yeah, I had a great time, and the hobby's certainly growing. I think someone mentioned that the Sport Card Expo this year, the layout was almost double the physical size. So there was more ground to cover, therefore more vendors, but it was also spaced out really well too. Like before, we're stuck in this one or two main halls. And, it kind of felt like the National. We both were at the National. It gets crowded in some areas where you're like trying to, get by someone. But it was a little more spacious because of the bigger physical layout. So I enjoyed that. The downside, of course, is that we were set up at the second hall, kind of in the middle. There's 1, 2, and 3. We're kind of in the middle, and the main hall is like, Jeremy Lee's at the main hall. He has a name, and that's a bigger hall. And you could just spend the whole day in the main hall without even knowing that there's a second and third part to it. So that's the downside of it too. And people came to us. Several people said like, "Wow, I didn't even know you guys were set up here." I'm like, come on, organizers, you got to put some more signs, get some more traffic. But the good part is that it's a multiple day show, like the National, 4 days. So there are a lot of people that go for multiple days. Like you see them not just come for 1 day. So the second day, they'll eventually get to where you are and spend some more time there. But yeah, as a vendor, as a booth, just being at a booth, eye-opening experience, especially if you have enough slabs. Definitely beneficial for you to just display it out there. For me, you mentioned kind of in passing, I'm more of a baseball card collector. So that's a lot of my cards are baseball cards. But the Sport Card Expo is still predominantly hockey, as you can guess or would assume in Canada. But it's become more diverse. And then, the other side is the Pokemon TCG card market is growing very rapidly. So there was a huge section just devoted to that. So I was lucky to have enough Pokemon cards ripping with my son and like having just extra inventory that I brought. And I sold a bunch of these singles. It's crazy how it was a really Pokemon cards was an even bigger magnet for my booth than my, lower end Otanis. So yeah, diversifying in a way helped me out a bit. But yeah, overall, I like Will, my co-host on Cards to the Moon. We're already thinking that we're going to do it again in November for the winter show. And so, yeah, great positive overall experience.
That's great to hear. So you've been there for multiple years. Seems like it's growing, set up as a vendor for the first time. So this is like the spring show. I'm curious to see if you do go to the winter show and set up. I'm curious to see, like, is there a seasonality difference in terms of attendees and vendors and everything? I know, like, for example, other shows that I've attended multiple times, like Culture Collision, there's kind of been like, it's a great show, but there's kind of been like some really down shows and then some shows that do better. And like, they have 2 of those a year now. And like my experience is that like one does really well, the other doesn't. And then, so I'm encouraged overall, obviously. And same thing with the Nashville card show, actually. Like the Nash Dational, there's like a quarterly big Nashville show.
Nice.
And the same thing. It's like I've set up as a vendor in like the spring, and I've set up as a vendor like in the winter, and some seasons are great, other seasons are bad. Like I had a bad experience setting up as a vendor one time, and it got me thinking, like, is it even worth it to set up as a vendor? So what do you think after you've set up at the Toronto Expo for the first time as a vendor?
No, really good question, because now thinking about the November show, I wonder, traditionally it's hockey season just started, and being a major or mainly a hockey kind of card expo, essentially, those obviously do well. But since I don't have any hockey cards to sell, I wonder if that's going to be something that impacts, my ability to sell cards for the November show. So definitely something to consider. The thing that would still make me want to do it is, like you mentioned, maybe I go more heavy on Pokemon cards, because Pokemon cards, their season is all year. So you don't have to worry about the seasonality.
There is no off season in Pokemon.
There you go. You need to have a Pokemon segment for your show.
Yeah, like actually, so pausing that real quick, I wanted to ask you this anyway. Make me an argument. Why should I get into Pokemon and TCG? Lefty and I Lefty was just joking with me on one of the
Mhm.
last episodes about like, can you even name 4 Pokemon? And like I couldn't. Like I've even forgot about Charizard. That's how bad I am. So, but
Yeah.
like make an argument. Like, am I totally missing out? Do I need to start getting into this? Being a scalper?
Oh, it's like, you know, if someone asked you during COVID, it's like, should I get into sports cards? And you know it's the peak. You know there are top signals, and you know it's
Uh-huh.
gonna regress. But what would your answer be to that? Like, oh, it's like, yeah, sports cards, trade carefully, and it's not gonna go up forever. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you believe that it's not gonna completely die out. It's not gonna be Junk Wax 2.0. There's gonna be cards that do rise to the top, and you got to ride out the rough waves, so to speak. I think that's similar to where we are in the Pokemon card market. Like we're coming to the top at some point because it's so hot it can't just sustain like these levels for a while. But at the same time, I think it'll do fine even when it regresses a little. And I think so. Yes, I think it's educational. It's better to educate yourself. I mean, to just know what the market is
Yeah. That makes
and
sense.
because especially if for you like if you know uh, financial upside is of interest, there's certainly a lot of people making money on Pokemon cards right now, and like all things, you got to do your own research, but um, but yeah, there's definitely opportunities. The only tricky part is a lot of it is sentiment driven. Obviously, like you got your favorite characters, and you know you can't judge them on the way they perform on the field or on the court. So
Yeah.
it's like, I guess these are popular characters. The artwork, art is very subjective, so that's also a thing to consider. But if you like it, if you think other people will enjoy it as art, especially for only the collector types, then that has a chance to go up. And scarcity too. Like there's certain cards that are hard to gem. In terms of
Mhm.
scarcity for Pokemon cards, it's kind of more um, like vintage because they're zero numbered cards. Like there's the scarcity doesn't
Ooh.
come in the numbered cards. It comes in whether a certain card is known to really be hard to find in good condition, just because of the print lines or like I said, more like a vintage almost mindset. Like all vintage cards look the same, but not all of them in terms of quality are created equal. So some cards are just harder to gem, providing that scarcity. And others just don't make sense. I have a card, the Pikachu Van Gogh. I don't know if I'm speaking gibberish to you, but I got it for $400 a couple of years ago, and it's at 4,000 right now, right? So Canadian, so 3,000 US.
Close
Um,
enough.
right. So and that pop count for a PSA 10 is closing in on 50,000. So it doesn't
What?
make sense, but
Yeah.
other than the demand being
Yeah, the demand is outweighing this. Okay, that's actually a really good
right.
piece of data to show how popular it is, and the demand
I'll say the
outweighing the
one
supply of 50,000.
exactly, and I'll say that about demand. Like when products drop on the Pokemon Center website, the official website, um, and think about this: when the tops Chrome products drop, majority of the people that are trying to buy it online when the drop happens, let's say it's primarily North America, the US, Canada. You got some more international customers that it's growing out there too. Pokemon is truly international. You're competing with German Pokemon collectors, Japanese Pokemon collectors, North American like it is incredible the demand that can be out there for Pokemon card products. So yeah, the demand is high.
Yeah. In that regard, that does make sense that the demand is outweighing the supply of 50,000 on a PSA 10.
Yeah.
In a way, you sold me on Pokemon because what I like about it, if I were to get into it, I would approach it the same way that I tell people I wish I would have approached sports cards back in like 2020, which was uh I jumped in and I just started doing things, and
Hmm.
specifically I started like buying things, right? And I went through my old collection and I was dealing with that at the same time as I was like buying stuff. And I wish that I would have observed and looked at more data and like educated myself further before I started actually spending my own money.
Hmm.
Some people learn by doing, and that's typically been me. But I think with the experience that I've had in the sports card hobby, if I were to get into Pokemon, I would challenge myself not to buy anything for a very for as long as possible before I like actually gained as much knowledge as possible. So I think that I would take the approach of like looking at the data, looking at the sales, and trying to understand like what's desirable first before, and just what I did in sports cards was like just go and buy a bunch of stuff.
Right.
So, and then learn the hard way.
Smart.
So that's good. It could be a new opportunity. It could be a fresh start to be like, here's a market, kind of like what you described. Like back when I got into sports cards, it's kind of like that's where Pokemon is right now in terms of how the prices are. And that's interesting. So who knows? I don't know. Like, I think the thing I struggle with is what something you already mentioned, which is how do you know, other than what's totally subjective to a potential buyer, like how do you know that the price is going to go up versus the sports card pattern recognition is just like, it's natural to me. It's natural to understand what to do, when to buy, when to sell, what players. And so like with the subjectivity of these made up fictional characters, I just don't, that could be the part that like maybe where I just don't last. And I just, either I never get into it or I'm just a scalper for a little while and piss people off and then get out.
Yeah, no, that's all fair. But you know, the deeper I go into it, it's a lot of fun in some ways because the volatility makes it definitely more interesting. And you know, the only thing I could equate it to sports is you got your superstar players, right? You got your Pikachus, you got your Charizards. They will always be there, the LeBron and Jordans of the Pokemon world. But they also have a lot of different cards, like those characters. And so, you know, and there's, you know, people like shiny cards, full art cards. So you could narrow it. Like I said, my strategy is to simplify things, right? You got a lot of the base cards, but these full art, so like they call it special illustration rare cards, are the hits, so to speak. And yes, they're printed to the moon, some of them, but because they're printed to the moon, I mean, some of these special illustration rares, it's like the one thing that's similar to sports cards is like the booster boxes. The boxes, like it would be the equivalent of hobby boxes or jumbo boxes, cost a lot because everyone's chasing the hits, but it's always it's always more advantageous to buy singles, and it's not as fun, but it's more economical. And some of these special illustration rares only are couple $100, you know, 300. And for someone that's not as educated in Pokemon, you might think that's expensive, but I think about the days back when we started collecting again in sports cards where I thought $300 for a raw card, man, I don't know if I want to spend that. But if I could turn back time now and learn about what I did about grading and everything else, I'm looking at a 4-5 figure card that I could have easily bought for $200-300 raw which I thought was expensive back then. So I kind of see the similar parallel in Pokemon card world where raws, if it looks like it's in good condition, there's some plays that you could have there. And yeah, you got to be lucky, but you got to be lucky in sports card collecting too. So a lot of similarities for me that I see.
Okay, love it. Are you gonna sell your Pikachu Van Gogh that you're up like so much on?
I tried, but here's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that question up because it's not exactly rare because there's a lot of PSA 10s out there. A lot of vendors have it as well. All right, so you got to price it in a way that's attractive to the buyer. So yes, I actually tried to sell it during the Sport Card Expo, but I think the sentiment right now in the market is like it's got to drop. But at the same time, we've been saying this for the past 2 years, and all it's been doing is been going up and up. Like if the Sport Card Show, the Expo happened a month ago, it would be between 2,000 and 2,500 US. But because it happened just recently, it's now averaging just over 3K. So where's the top? No one can predict. But so I think that's why people are hesitant to buy certain cards that are just ballooning right now. But certainly I'm looking to see if anyone is willing to buy it at the current market price because it's definitely a nice profit.
I see. Okay, so that makes sense. Now, this actually gets into back to the sports card show vendor versus walking around the show. question that I want to get into more with you.
Yeah.
And so I'll start it here. Like, what about selling it on eBay? Because, like, you know, I think a lot of people, I don't know this to be true. I think like there's a lot of vendors and card shops that sell on eBay as well as, at shows. What I find is that people sort of think about, like, if I'm going to set up as a vendor at a show,
Hmm.
I want my best inventory for the show and I don't want to sell it on eBay. Whereas, like, for me, I'm just like, well, eBay to me is the biggest competition to
Hmm.
card show vendors. It's the biggest competition to card shops from not only a buying standpoint, but also a selling standpoint. Because look,
Yes.
if you're going to, to your point, yeah, all the vendors at the card show have the same card you have, but that the value of it. Like, you're coming with the value from eBay comps, right? So
Right.
why not sell it on eBay?
Certainly, you can. That's always an option. I guess it comes down to the 13%, the eBay takes off the top, and then you got to do that math calculation.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, as the prices get higher, with how comfortable you are shipping some of these. I've seen a transaction, or I've heard of a transaction just at this past expo. Someone was saying how they I don't even know what the Pokemon card was, but they put it down, grabbed some cash, literally $50,000 worth, just bills. And then the
Mm-hmm.
guy gave him $50 back in change. I'm like, okay, that's the cost of that one card. So it's the transaction. These are the amounts that we're dealing with. So
Yeah.
I guess for higher end cards in quote, higher value cards, there's a comfort level just to do it in person. So that's
Sure.
a factor as well. So, but yeah, I mean, you can always consign it if you feel safer that way. There's a lot of reputable consigners out there. But again, I guess you got to do the math in terms of the fees that are involved, and so yeah, I think eBay is always an option, and I think
Yeah.
it'll be more of an option down the line as things get a little bit more secure. So I think that's legitimate.
Sure. And I think there's a lot of people that don't have experience selling high value cards on eBay, or the experience that they have had in the past hasn't given them the confidence to
Right.
sell that kind of a card. So that makes sense. Like, when I do the math though, like, you'd be if you sold it for 3,000, 83% or 87% of 3,000 is 2610.
Mm-hmm.
You could pay, and like the proverbial you, if you have this card out there and you're listening, you could pay, like, most likely it's going to be $70 ish to ship, to like fully insure it shipped to the authenticator. The
Mm-hmm.
problem that Clark might have and Jeremy might have and other people is that they live in Canada. And so when you right now, eBay has this problem, unfortunately, where non-US sellers don't always have first of all, they don't always have the authenticity guarantee
Mm-hmm.
check box, which I think that if I were eBay, like, I know eBay employees personally that live in Canada. Their email address is ebay.ca. So I don't understand why there's that issue.
Yeah.
So eBay needs to fix the issue of not having the blue authenticity guarantee check just because you're in Canada. Like, that's stupid,
100%.
right? That is stupid. The other side is that, like, I'm talking about insuring it through USPS, and Clark obviously, can't ship United States Postal Service from the Toronto area to a US. But eBay does have international shipping, so that shouldn't, you should be able to at least insure your shipping internationally. Clark, do you have just real quick before we get back to the card show thing? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sidetracking us. Do you have experience selling on eBay to, like, US buyers, and is the international shipping thing pretty easy?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is easy. We have not just through eBay, but there's third-party businesses that
Mm-hmm.
in Canada that you could drop off. Like,
Okay.
I have one 10 minutes from my place, and they cater to businesses that do primarily business in the States. So actually, that's me. Like, if I do sell my cards, 95% of the people that buy my cards on eBay are from the US. Just the market's just way bigger there. So I'll go to a place called Chit Chats that will take it across the border, and then you get into the USPS system as well. So they do it for a small nominal fee. It's getting a little more complicated now with the whole tariff situation. It's always changing. That's politics. We don't have to get into it, but yeah, there's additional fees because they need to use a broker to get it through. There's been a couple times where it's been delayed, but little headaches, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But for some people, it might be enough for them to not do it online, not to even worry about that. And going back to the question of why sell it or at a card show, it's just the convenience of doing it right away and not worrying about those little headaches of shipping internationally here.
Okay, so back to the card show. What were your biggest frustrations set up as a vendor at the Toronto Sports Card Expo?
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of said this before. It's all about inventory, right? So being primarily a hockey card show, and there's other, I don't want to say 100% cards are all hockey, but there is predominantly hockey. If you have primarily baseball, it could work in your factor or it could work against it. Like, not a lot of people are looking for baseball, or as many as you would expect if the show was in the States. But at the same time, there will be baseball card collectors up in Canada. And if yours is one of the few, then they will come to you. So it could work in for or against you, depending on if they are able to find you. And yeah, I think you need to have enough inventory as well too. Like, I'm primarily a content creator, and I was telling my booth mate that I don't know if I would set up if I was just a seller. Like, if I was this pure, vendor and not a content creator. Like, it was worthwhile for me to promote my podcast while I was there. I'm actually about 3 or 4 visitors from the States came by to just say hi to us because they listen to our podcast.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Amazing experience just talking to them. And we started off the show, what kind of collector are we? Like, I was happy to talk to them for 5-10 minutes just about whatever. And I'm sure in the corner of my eye I could see someone interested in a card, but I'm not there primarily to make a sale. So I was more glad to meet with fellow podcast listeners. So that made it worth my while. But back to the question of, I could see if you were just a seller and you didn't have the right cards at the show, you would be underwater. Like, it's $1,000 Canadian to set up at the Sport Card Expo.
Yeah,
right?
That's not cheap.
It's not cheap. And I joked that for me, my strategy, because I didn't have that many cards, but I had a few higher end cards, including Pokemon cards, and I sold one for almost 2,000 US or Canadian. So I was able to make profit, but my strategy was like, it's like selling a car. You just got to sell 1 or 2 and then you're good. Whereas other people's strategies, like selling all these $50, $40 cards in volume. But that was, there's risk either way. Like, you have to carry all that inventory. I didn't have that much to carry, but I got to hope that I sell 1 or 2 of these bigger cards to make it worth my while. And I was lucky to at least sell one of my Pikachus for that much.
That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of what you said resonates with me because, like, I have set up at card shows and I have promoted the Sports Card Strategy Show and nooffseason.com. I've had like banners and t-shirts and some giveaway items like little drawstring backpacks. I've like, stickers with, to promote the podcast and to talk to let new people that have never heard of the Sports Card Strategy Show know about it. And what I like about that is, like, everyone is always like receptive to that. They're always pretty darn excited. Oh, cool. I'll check that out. That's great. And that sort of thing. And then to your point, like, my favorite thing is when listeners come up and they're like, oh, I recognize your voice. I was just dropping my kids off at school listening to, stuff like that. That makes that obviously is like this unanticipated bonus that kind of keeps me going, like when I'm able to have those kinds of conversations with people. And I do, like you, I kind of forget that I'm set up as a vendor and I'm just talking about the show and about, asking people about their lives and things like that because they're invested in what I'm doing. So I love that. But I agree with you. It's like, if you take a look, and so it does depend on your strategy. And I think it depends on your strategy from a couple different aspects. What type of person are you? I'm the type of person that I value efficiency. I value productivity. And so when you look at the fact that when you set up at a card show and you pay, what would it be, 600 or 700 US dollars or 1,000 Canadian or whatever that is, that's a lot of money, first of all, to invest in that. So now if you value efficiency and productivity, you're investing a lot of money, but then you're also investing a lot of time. This is like the Nashville card show that I talked about, the Toronto Sports Card Expo that you're talking about. It's what, 2-3 day shows. So if you're going to spend that much money, now you're the type of person that I'm describing. You're going to be there for all those days to maximize the money that you're spending. So, but now you're also investing more time because you're there for multiple days. Yeah. So now if you're sitting there for hours at your table, because you can't get up, unless you have a friend or, a business partner, you can't leave your table. So you're sitting there for the entire day. And a lot of the time, even though the show is packed and like the overall sports card market and TCG market is doing well, like you're at a place where things are happening. The reality is, like, even at a packed show, like, you're not getting transactions per hour. You might get transactions per day.
Right.
And so that is, when you go back to what I value, that is super inefficient. It is super unproductive. So that is why I stopped setting up as a vendor at card shows, because I don't like, I would get upset at the output, the return on my time and my money, not necessarily the return on I actually don't really care about the return on the money. I wasn't like, I'm okay paying whatever it is to set up at the show. But to your point, it's more about promoting the business. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the cost of promoting the business. Yeah. I'm more upset at the return on the investment of my time sitting there the entire time. Yeah. When I could be. So now let me ask you this, because my best card show experiences set up as a vendor has actually been buying cards.
Right.
How did you find that? Were you able to do that at all?
Yeah, no, that's amazing insight, what you just mentioned. And I think I'm glad you brought up this question too, because I was a rookie, so I made a lot of mistakes too, and the two buddies that are also co-hosts with me on the pod, they're more experienced at vending, and they both said, to your point, the buying is the more fun, because they come to you, and a lot of people come to you, say like, hey, are you interested in the cards? And you're like, okay, there could be potential deals, that are just, so yeah, I think I didn't take advantage of that, because I was more like, my brain was like promoting the pod, but also trying to sell some of my cards. And I'm like, what's the third thing? Oh, buying. And like, not enough people were coming to me with cards. And I think it's also my personality, like, or in kind of full circle, kind of what kind of collector I am. I'm very specific about the cards that I like, so I'm like, it doesn't fall into any of my pillars, so I'm passing on a lot of them.
Totally.
I'm happy to look at every card. If someone says like, are you buying? I'm like, yeah, let me take a look. Happy to do that. But because I have a more simplified, narrowed focus, I end up not buying. Whereas some of my friends, they see it more broadly, and they're like, okay, I could grade this, probably flip it at the next card show or on eBay, and they're more open to it. So it looked like they were having a lot more fun than I was in terms of that front, in terms of buying. And I'm like, oh, a lot of people are going to them for. And my friend was into wrestling cards. That was his niche. And like, we're talking about sports cards being niche. Wrestling cards is even more niche, but that community is growing too. So it was kind of cool to witness, like, oh wow, these guys are hardcore about WWE cards, and a lot of transacting going on. And then he was joking, like, I got to stop buying, right? It's because he was just like spending more, but then at the same time he was having fun, and he could also see the potential of flipping it later on too. So yes, buying. If I set up at the next one, I'm gonna try to be more intentional about buying, cards that I like or I find interest in, because and on this, going back to the selling part, one thing as a vendor, it can't all be this, but your like dollar or $2 or $5 cards, much easier to get rid of as a vendor than like going around like, hey, do you want to look at my $1, $2 cards? And a lot of the vendors will be not interested. I wouldn't be interested in collecting more lower end cards. But my first day I put them in dollar boxes, and this is where I talk about changing up my strategy. And I didn't have enough traffic for people to kind of rifle through them. So I had like a corner spot. So it was nice. And on one side of the table, I just laid out all my dollar cards and just covered the whole table in sleeves. And I sold a bunch that way. That people just walking by just stopped and like, oh, and most of them were Blue Jays because I was catering to the hometown market, and they're just like, yeah, I'll take 4 or 5 of these, and it added up over time. So, you got to take advantage of where you see, the advantages, where the advantages exist as a vendor. So that's another thing in terms of selling that was easier to do, set up rather than going around. But if I only had the higher end cards, I think I'd probably be more interested in just walking around and seeing which booths would like those higher end cards. So different strategies, depends what kind of cards you have. I think that all plays into it.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. Like it totally depends on what cards you have. So like, and also like, how do you get your inventory? Like, so I think part of the reason why setting up as a vendor stopped being interesting to me is because I was buying all my cards off of eBay. Right. And and they're more higher end. Right. So inherently I'm leaving comps, and then I'm taking them to card shows. And at card shows, people want to pay 85% of the comps. So unless it was a raw to grade win, unless it was like a big raw to grade win, then I was just going to lose money as a vendor at every card show. But to your point, if you get your inventory maybe a different way, like maybe you're doing multiple things. You're not just buying singles off of eBay like I do, but you're doing multiple things where your strategy is to like rip a little bit of wax, go to some go to some like flea market things, go to some card shows and try to get, value box stuff, and then
or
trade some stuff and all that. And then come as a vendor and be like, okay, here's a value box. Here's some singles from some stuff that I ripped that it's low end. And then here's some high end stuff. Then, and have a strategy of like, what I would do, that's actually what I would do in the future. If I ever set up as a vendor, I would have stuff that I've acquired over time for that specific card show. I'd have some super low end, some value, and a little bit of high end. But my goal would be the only high end I bring are going to be raw to grade wins. And then because I'm up on all of that stuff. Yeah. So I can, if someone makes an offer that's right around comps, I can accept it and I'm making money. Yeah. And I don't even really I just have to know what the comps are. I don't even really have to know what I'm into it for, because that's just like a whole other element. Yes. It just kind of sucks for the whole experience. So like, but what I would do specifically is I would make like buying probably 50% of what I came to the show to do. And I would buy stuff that I could just put right back in my showcase and mark up a little bit. Right. But I think I'm so much like you that it's scary. Like when I look at stuff as a vendor at a card show, I am disinterested in the 99.9. Like I'm actually repulsed by it. Like it makes me want to leave because it's that bad. But then to your point, like, yeah, I look over at like a good example is like Joe, Mosaic Joe, from a good friend of mine. Like he's actually the one who is a big fan. He was a big fan of Cards to the Moon, and he's actually a big reason why you and I are friends. So like, I would look over at Joe, and he's like having a blast because he's just buying whatever because he knows that it's gonna sell. And I'm like, that is so disgusting. I don't even want to look at it. Can't even believe you bought that. But he's so happy because he's like, I just made like $400. I'm like, all right, well, you're smarter than I am.
That's hilarious. Yeah, totally true. Know exactly what you're talking about. But to your point about like having a few high-end cards, that worked out for me too. Like next time I come, the first day I didn't bring out a couple of the high-end cards because I'm like, do I really want to sell it? Like my Mike Trout, which we'll talk about in a sec.
Yes.
But my Luka Doncic, the blue contenders, number to 99.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Doubled in price. Yep. So the second day I brought all of them, even my high-end Pikachu. Like I have a of a Pikachu card that's about 7,000 Canadian right now, and I'm in it for like under 1,000.
Isn't your wife just like? Sorry, I do not know your wife.
Yeah, just,
your partner. I don't even know if you're married. I know you have kids. So
I'm
I
married.
assume.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So isn't your wife like, bro? What are we doing with the 7,000? Like, when are we getting that
totally.
for the bathroom remodel?
Like, we're actually looking for a new car, so it's a perfect time where she's like, "You got to sell something," you know. So I sold, like I said, I sold one of my Pikachu, so that's goes towards the down payment. But yes, she's asking more if I sold anything than. She's never asking if I bought anything. That's for sure.
Okay, that's how my wife is too. I mean, she's supportive, but she's like, "Hey, so what'd you sell?"
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of our spouses are like
so.
That in the hobby.
Actually, my wife's favorite line is like, she doesn't even realize, but I'll be like, "Man, I just sold this LeBron James card for like $3,500 on eBay today," and she's like, "Oh, great. Well, what'd you pay for it?"
Exactly.
She does not care.
Yes.
What's the net profit?
I'm laughing because I hear that question a lot as well from my wife. But yes, I was saying in terms of high end cards, just bringing it. I found it to be a very effective magnet. People stop on their tracks, and then even a couple of them joked like, because I have like a lot of $10-$20 cards in the case, because that's I had to fill it out. And then I got my Trout and Luca and my Bobby Witt Superfractor, the three of them. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, it's more the same." And then they see those high and they're like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" You know, it's like you got like a huge hammer and amongst like this raw, all raw too, and like the lower end ones. Like, wow, okay.
Big
and then
flex in the middle of the showcase.
Exactly.
Like
starts a conversation, and
yeah, for sure. That's funny though, because the people are kind of sitting there at that Bobby Witt going, interesting. Maybe. All right. So I thought of you the other day. Lefty and I were talking about Mike Trout on the Sports Card Strategy show, and Lefty's a big baseball guy, so he kind of had this trivia question for me, like what this was like maybe a month ago. So he's like, what player am I looking at that we haven't really talked about him, but he's been a big deal. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And so I went through and I got Trout on my fifth guess, which I was very happy with, because I know enough about baseball to participate in buying and selling baseball cards, but I'm not like, baseball is like my third behind football and basketball. So my guesses were like Ellie De La Cruz, Vlad, Acuna. I'm not even going to be able to remember who my other guess was, but I think it was pretty good. And then Trout was my fifth guess, and Lefty was like, "Yes, can't believe you got Trout." And then I was immediately like, okay, Clark has like collected Trout for a while. Like he's been a guy that you've been on for a long time. You have at least one massive Mike Trout card, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have the 2009 Bowman Chrome draft, the first Bowman prospect or rookie auto, refractor, numbered to 500. And when I got back into the hobby, Mike Trout was a guy. If you play fantasy baseball, Mike Trout was your guy, multi-tool, 5-tool guy. So the 2009 Bowman Chrome, I actually had the base to start off with. People who listen to the pod will be very familiar with the story where I bought the BGS 910 auto of the base 2009 Bowman Chrome rookie auto. And I cracked it out and I got it submitted to PSA, came back a PSA 9, which bumped up its value from BGS 9. And I sold that on eBay. And with that money, I reinvested it into what I have now, which is the Bowman Chrome refractor. And that's numbered to 500 in a BGS 9.5. And when I bought it, the market was just tanking on Mike Trout because he just couldn't stay healthy. I think I bought it 2-3 years ago, and I got it for $5,000 US, like right on 5,000. And I think the last sale it does, if you follow baseball, Mike Trout's having a season. It looks like he's staying healthy, double-digit home runs already. And the last sale of the same grade, True Gem though, went for $12,000 US. So it went from $5,000, my initial investment, to $12,000. So yeah, I brought it to the show, seeing if anyone was willing to pay comps, because I think this was a question you're going to ask if I'm willing to sell. I'm willing to sell at that profit by 2x. Like I was everyone was asking like, why don't you just cut your losses? Because it was a 5K and then it dipped to 4.9, 4.8. I'm like, it's trending the wrong way. But I felt like I just got a good deal for it, considering that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Like he already has the numbers, even if he just has an injury riddled career for the rest of his years. He's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. So, but I was a believer. I'm like, he just needs one really good season, and I had to wait 2.5 years for it. And knock on wood, this is the year that he stays completely healthy. But yeah, it's at the point where you're already seeing his numbers. Well, for me, more than 2x in value. So at that price point, I'm willing to sell for that. Although I love Mike Trout.
I mean, that's phenomenal. So like, is this the auto?
This is the auto. I can show you.
So is this the card that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So using our card analyzer and predictor tool at nooffseason.com, it's prices things out first. And so I found the sale that Clark was referring to, not his sale, but the same card that he has sold for 12,000 US. And that is sold. It's sold on April 25th. And so I think that if you go back and look at like maybe, Mike Trout's season that he's having, that was a good, smart selling marker for that person to list that card. So yeah. So do you have this list? Do you have yours listed on eBay, or are you just saying you would sell it? Do you have it listed anywhere online, or are you just saying that you would sell it at a card show for this price?
Yeah. I don't have a list online, but at that price point, I'd be willing to sell at a card show. And maybe one of the reasons why it's like I don't mind holding on to it a little bit longer. It's kind of fun to see how his season plays out. So I'm not in a hurry to rush and sell it. Maybe it'll go up even higher. Like it's kind of wild to see after seeing his value just flatline for years, finally seeing this bump is kind of fun. And it makes for good content because everyone knows I've been a Trout believer for years. I'm like, finally, Mike Trout.
That's true. It is good. It is good content. It's great content because of, it's better content than 99.9% of the content out there where people are, not telling the story behind this is what I bought, like the story that you just told, right? Where it's like, and giving some of the details around, and that's what you can do on a podcast where you can like get into details about what you would do, what you wouldn't do. And it's super interesting. So, wanted to ask you about that. If it were me, I would at least have it listed on eBay just to like maybe field some offers. You could always, list it at higher than 12K. That's what I would encourage you to do. I don't know but like list it at 15K, and then just field offers. And then it's more content. You'd be like, hey guys, I got an offer. What should I do? That's more content. That's what I would do. That's what I tell everybody at nooffseason.com to do is like when you have a card like that, and it's gone up that much in value, it's silly not to list it, Clark. At least just list it.
I would agree with you most of the time, but for me, I'm not even thinking the end of season. I'm going to national. So I don't know if you're going to national this year.
Yes,
I'll meet you there because I'll be there as well. But
and you're going to have it with you at the national.
I'm going to bring it if I still, exactly. So,
okay. That'll be fun. And I took a page out of your book. Actually, I got a media pass.
Nice. Yes.
So the last 4 years I've paid for VIP stuff. And then I'll run into Clark at these shows and he's got a media pass. I'm like, damn it.
Why didn't I do that? We're doing the same thing. You could definitely get one too if I can get one. So yeah, I have my media pass. I'm ready to go too.
I mean, I know that everybody likes you more than they like me. But I figured I would at least try to get a media pass, and they oblige. So that's nice. Good. All right, Clark, I got to pause real quick and talk about what nooffseason.com members are talking about. So this is a cool one. It's long, but I'm going to go through it. Steve B says, Paul, love everything you do, man. Your content and advice has helped me go from a degenerate breaker to a shrewd card investor. Now my wife and daughter and I are even doing eBay reselling with their own collectibles after seeing the wins I have been having with your proven strategies at nooffseason.com. Now, in addition to my own eBay shop where I'm ditching all that useless wax I accrued, wasting money, buying into breaks, we now run a family business. My wife is a doctor of physical therapy who also has type 1 diabetes. She was injured about 10 years ago on the job and hasn't been able to return to work, which has made life hard for her as she felt lost. Last month, for her 50th birthday, I registered our store for an LLC, got us a federal employer identification number, and all the other licenses to make us a full-fledged legal company, making her the president of the LLC now for the first time in 10 years. After seeing my success, she feels like there is hope for her to have something other than being a stay-at-home mom for her. No, she's not just selling sports cards, but she's flipping all kinds of other collectibles she finds. In fact, she just made her first sale of 2 vases she got for free from some curb alert on Facebook. That's pretty cool. She even incorporated our 13-year-old daughter into the mix, who is now also wanting to use nooffseason.com strategies on her TCG cards and manga she has collected. Now our daughter is learning how to use data to source and price items for a profit using nooffseason.com strategies. We have found TCG cards that she had that will be big wins for her when they come back from grading. Just wanted to let you know that you and Lefty have had an impact that surpasses just sports cards. Had I not found nooffseason.com, I would still be stupidly trying to make more money buying the wrong cards at the wrong time for the wrong price instead of being more methodical and relying on stats. So thanks, man. That's a long one from Steve B. Clark, but joining nooffseason.com, which you can all do, go to nooffseason.com, join that wait list, get in on the next drop. You can be like Steve B. So Clark, that's a pretty good one, man. What do you think?
Great testimonial.
Love that. So Clark, I got to get a couple more of those reads in. So I got a couple more questions to ask you. Grading experiences that you think are interesting.
Grading experiences. What do you mean by that exactly?
Recently or in the past, have there been any experiences with sports card grading that have caught your attention, good, bad, or just the state of grading right now? Like how much grading are you doing? How much grading are people around you doing? What factors are they considering in terms of like turnaround time and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was going to just mention turnaround times is a big factor now, right? It just feels like we're kind of back into that COVID era where you submit and then you kind of forget which cards you submitted because it's been so long. In fact, just the other day, I submitted a couple of Pokemon cards for a friend of mine, and then I just got the alert that it's ready to be picked up. I go through a store here in the Toronto area, and then they bulk submit it. And then honestly, I have like about 3 or 4 submissions, and I couldn't remember which cards went out. And so when I looked, like, oh, that's right, I got these for these guys. So I think turnaround times is a big thing, and it's one of those things in terms of if you're going to consider grading, like you have to think about it a little bit more, right? Like what do you think the value is going to be 5 or 6 months down the line? For me, I'm thinking of, okay, if I'm going to set up at the November show, I should think about grading some of my cards that I'm interested in grading now, so I get them in the late summer, and then it'll be ready for the November show. So yeah, and I think with the rise of TCG, if you look at the PSA numbers, especially, I don't know if you've seen gemrate.com, but the majority of cards being sent in are TCG cards, which makes sense why you're waiting 5-6 months even to get these cards back. And values obviously even for Pokemon cards change a lot within 5-6 months. So you have to consider those factors too. And one thing I'll say at the Sport Card Expo, Beckett was there and they were doing on-site submissions and they were packed. And I don't know if it's because PSA took over. We're always joking that Beckett needs to step up, but ever since PSA took over, there's a longer lineup, despite the fact, I don't know if you know this, but the cost of grading Beckett, they doubled in, like, literally went from $30-$35 to $65-$70 to get some of your Beckett cards graded, and people are willing to pay. People like obviously with the lineups there, and our booth was right by Beckett, so we could see for ourselves how busy it was throughout the 3-4 days at the show. But that was interesting to see, like what's Beckett doing now that they're under PSA, and I wonder if anything else is going to change, because PSA famously known for their upcharges. Beckett's not there yet, but is that coming? Is that a kind of a reality that we just need to prepare for in the next several months or in 1 year? So all these questions are out there now in terms of, especially if you're going to consider grading with Beckett.
That's a good point. I didn't think about the upcharges for Beckett because Collectors has acquired. I think what I've been just absolutely pounding on the Sports Card Strategy Show is Beckett needs a better integrated website experience with their email alerts. I've been grading with Beckett a lot. NoOffSeason.com members can grade. One of the great offerings that NoOffSeason.com has is like you any of our members, like regardless of where they are in the world. So this might even be handy for, Canadian listeners. It is handy for Canadian listeners, but like you can use our plays by just drop shipping us your cards, and then I send them to grading. So even if you have and we have a card analyzer and predictor tool, right? So let's say you go buy 5 2020 Bobby Witt Jr. non-auto refractor Bowman Chrome firsts, right? And you buy 5 of them and you run them through our card analyzer and predictor tool, and it says 2 of them might gem at Beckett and the other 3 might gem at PSA. You could send us all 5. We'll send the 2 to Beckett, the 3 to PSA, all that stuff, right? So then if you want, we'll consign them for you or we'll ship them back to you. But what I've noticed is that so all that is to say, I've graded a lot with Beckett. And so when you get, the worst thing is when you get you'll get an email alert and it'll be like grading complete and it'll have your submission number on it. Well, there's no button to click that will then take you to the grading results. You have to manually copy the submission number over, log into your Beckett account in another browser tab and try to find it. And then, oh, by the way, just because you got the grading complete message does not mean that your grades are ready for you to see. Whereas PSA will send you your grades are ready, and then you can click the button and it takes you over, and they have the app and everything. So I've been hoping that those kinds of improvements, let's start with simply being able to have a button where you can. The worst thing, Clark, is I had to change my credit card on file with Beckett. So I changed my default payment method to the new credit card, but for any grading order that I had previously submitted to the old credit card, I would get an automated message from Beckett that would say, update your payment method for this order. But then when I would click that button to update the payment method for the order, it would take me nowhere. So then I would have to manually go find a form on Beckett.com to let them know about it. I mean, it's just a mess.
It's
annoying. It's super annoying. All right. Yeah. Remember that NoOffSeason.com is the only place on the planet with sports card rankings updated every Friday, sorted by the ROI percentage you're likely to make in the future. Check out NoOffSeason.com and join the waitlist to get on the next drop. Now, Clark can cut this stuff out if he wants when it airs on Cards to the Moon, or he could be a good old buddy, old pal, and just leave it in there for his listeners to hear. It's up to you. Clark, last question of the day. Any hobby news that's caught your eye recently that you want to talk about? Because Sports Card Strategy Show, we don't typically talk about hobby news unless we see something that comes across the feed that we really have a strong opinion on. But I know that you're more in tune. I think you're more in tune with the hobby news than I am. So I'm continuing to talk so that you can think about your answer. But what do you think?
No, I already got one. Because I mean, our podcast, like you're saying, is we have a section called Hobby Headlines every week. So we're always up to date on the hobby news. And the one recent one we had a long discussion on, and I'm actually curious to see what you think or if you have any ideas for it, is that the Topps Chrome football release, there was a lot of hoopla on it because it sold out quickly. I tried to get on the EQL, couldn't get any inventory of the hobby boxes. I got botted out. But, you look at the prices on the secondary market, it's insane. You can't get a hobby box for a decent price. And that's where the market is. I know that. But the bigger question is, how do you make it more fair for people that want to buy a hobby box of Topps Chrome Football or a new release? Is there any way to make it more equitable, or is this just the reality of where we are in the hobby? And this is, you got to be lucky. You got to be lucky to beat the bots. You got to be lucky to be number one in the line for EQL. Or do we just accept it that this is, and I think why it was a long discussion is that, there are a lot of people you could look on social media that were very upset that they couldn't get a box of Topps Chrome Football unless they were willing to pay $1,000 for a hobby box. And, one of my co-hosts said, like, maybe you save a bit of the inventory for collectors and not for the stores or breakers. Maybe you allocate a different amount for them. But then, there's, for every idea, there's always a, like, how do you get around X, Y, and Z? Stores can get their employees to buy as much inventory as they want. So, there's this cat and mouse game involved as well. But I'm wondering if you have any ideas off the top of your head in terms of resolving this, or are you kind of resigned to this is where we are? Popular products, you got to be lucky or expect to pay through the nose for the product.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic. I did try to get in on the EQL drop as well for the pre-order of that product, and I was not able to get it. I did buy a mega box and a value, I believe a value box and a mega box. And so the reason why I tried to get the hobby box is to flip it, don't rip it. That's my thing. I know you're probably ripping it
for content. Rip it
for content. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's Clark's strategy. I like it. My strategy is flip it, don't rip it. But I was, and I would be right as well because of the prices that you're talking about. Had I got one, I would have made some good profit off of that. I think, let's see. I think that the fact that anyone can get a mega or a value in a way takes care of collector, like the kids, the collectors, like that whole, like,
right.
We've already kind of gone through some of the hobby personas in this show. And like, it's safe to assume that most people listening understand, kind of what we're dealing with here and probably have their own hot take on this as well. Mm-hmm. My thing is, I think if I were Topps Fanatics or, Panini in the past, and I'm looking at the prices on the secondary market and I'm thinking, wow, like, good for us that we're making that we're part of making a product that sells for that much on the secondary market, but also, like, where's that for us? Like, how do we get, I would be thinking, how do we get the most out of each product without, like, squeezing the customer out? And so I think it's fair to try to provide something for everyone and I think that, I feel like that's what they're trying to do by saying, like, okay, you get in the EQL drop for the cases and the hobby boxes and the jumbo hobbies or whatever, the EQL. And then you've got the other SKUs that you can just go buy whatever you want. So I feel like that's what they're trying to do. If I were them, I might be doing more of like a where Josh Luber and what was the Zero Cool drop where you would, like, go. It was a super complicated but kind of fun where you would, like, go and you would put in your own highest bid. And then I think what they did was, like, he called it like some kind of reverse Dutch auction or something.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'm not saying that that's the best idea, but I think that, like, the EQL solution actually, like, is a pretty good solution because it allows everybody for, I think, an hour or a 2-hour block, a certain block of time that's, like, manageable for people in the world to get online and try to get in the drop. It doesn't favor people who can, like, drop everything they're doing at 12 noon Eastern time to, like, be the first to do it. I think that's unfair. So, like, I think it gives everybody who's willing to pay the price an opportunity to get in the drop for, like, an hour. Then it does the randomization. And then if you win the ability to do it. So I actually kind of like it. I think it works. I think that maybe there could be something where I would love, one thing you said that I'm pro is, like, definitely don't let any breakers have any of it. Definitely don't do that. Like, just don't let anyone breaking have any of it.
Yeah.
And just only let it go to people that are, well, I guess you couldn't do that because now all the hobby shops break as well. So I guess
exactly.
Never mind.
No, but I love
button on my last comment.
No, I love that you brought that up though, because there's always these questions that come up even as we talk about it and discuss, like, oh, but what about this or what about that, and that's kind of how that episode in particular, it's kind of like today's episode, it just kind of went on for a while because we're like trying to brainstorm ways, and I like your idea of EQ, like the question about EQL. There's, for people that are upset about EQL, they obviously think, oh, the bots are getting all of them, but we just don't know what the truth is. Maybe one of the solutions is just greater transparency on how everything works. That's a solution. And I know there was one offer where if you want to open for collectors, for hobby shop owners, there was an idea that to prevent flippers, or like everyone trying to flip the box, you would have to, like what they do in Japan for Pokemon boxes, they actually rip the seal off and then give it to you. So is that a solution? Yeah. So there's ideas out there.
I'm pro that, even though I'm a flipper. Like, because if I were the manufacturer, like I would maybe do that. But what I don't understand real quick, Clark, is like, why do they do the pre-order with the EQL, but then also do the regular with the EQL? Like, to me, that was the most confusing thing of the whole thing, is like, why do you even have a pre-order? Like, you're literally just doing okay, thanks. I'm glad I'm not just the only
all I knew was I was confused, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try it for a second time, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. But I will say this before we let you go. And by the way, if you like the content on this show and want more, go premium at nooffseason.com now to get unlimited advice answered on our Friday podcast for premium members called the Premium Pod. But I will say this: Clark Kim is a legend for me. And the reason why is because he's the only person that I know that's ever been to Fanatics Fest and won the ability to buy the Cactus Jack Topps Chrome box through the EQL with a media pass. Like, that is gangster. Because everyone else at the last Fanatics Fest bought the VIP package, and then they won. And I literally went around talking to people like, did you buy the VIP package? Yes. Did you win the EQL to buy the Cactus Jack? Yes. And then I'm like, Clark, you have a media pass and you got in the EQL and bought the Cactus Jack. So, I mean, you saved like $400.
Yeah, I can't remember how I did it, or if I got a friend, because it came with a friend too. So maybe that's so I can't remember how it happened, but
I'm pretty sure that you didn't break any rules. Like, you just you got in the EQL drop for Fanatics Fest because you were attending.
Yes,
but you attended with the media pass. So I mean, it's just amazing. Like, I think that you're a legend. So, Clark, thanks to Clark Kim of 5 Card Guys and Cards to the Moon for being on the Sports Card Strategy Show today. Clark, any shout outs you want to give, or any last thoughts?
No, it's funny. I did a whole episode of shout outs on my last, just my recent podcast episode, for all the people that did drop by to the expo from the States. One came from the Dominican Republic. That was awesome. And a lot of the local guys in Canada showed up. So just generally speaking, just shout out to, all the people that tune in, including listeners of Paul, just his podcast. We appreciate, I'm sure I could speak on both of us, but sometimes when you do these recordings, you almost forget that there are a lot of people that do listen to it out there on their commute or while they're mowing their lawn, which are two things that I heard people say to me. So we're glad to share in your life in that small way. But I'm always looking to shout out to all our listeners. So yeah, kudos to them.
Absolutely. Great point. We're just having fun talking about the hobby but it's for all of you. Clark, okay. Are you going to Fanatics Fest? I know we talked about, we're going to be at the National together. Are you going to go to Fanatics Fest?
So I'm going to most likely skip Fanatics Fest this year. There's a lot going on that week. I'm not sure if you're aware. I think the Dallas Card Show's going on that week. Fanatics Fest moved to mid-July because of the World Cup. So the World Cup finals are going on as well. And I believe the West Coast Card Show is that weekend as well. And I might actually go to the West Coast Card Show in California.
Nice. Okay.
So I think I'm skipping Fanatics Fest this year just because it's going to be busy and chaotic. But I always say this: if you live in the New York area, it's a no-brainer. You got to go to Fanatics Fest. Like if you're already in that area. But if you're flying in, hotels might be double the price now. So that's also something to consider. But yeah, I'll be at the National for sure, and most likely the West Coast Card Show.
Love that. So you may or may not have the Trout. I am not going to Fanatics Fest mainly because of the cost. Like you said, hotels are too expensive this year. The week it's like a couple weeks before the National. It's just not. And so what I'm going to do, and maybe we could collab on this. I'm going to have a show at some point in July where I spend the money that I would have spent traveling to and attending Fanatics Fest on eBay.
Nice.
All right, my man. Thanks again for joining. We'll talk soon.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.